Hello, and welcome once again to Exit Strategy. This is the podcast. You want to know what we do on this podcast? I'll tell you what we do on this podcast. I get comedians on. I'm Jeff, by the way. I'm your host. I get comedians to come over to my house. They've been doing comedy a while. I say, what would you do with your life? Hey, let me throw a scenario at you right now. What would you do with your life if you didn't do comedy? What would that look like? That's Exit Strategy. What is your exit strategy? Today, we have a very special episode. We have our first returning guest. This never happened before. Everybody's been a one-timer until now. That ends today. Allen Strickland Williams is back on the show for his second episode. He did the show about a year ago, and I would urge everyone to, before you listen to this one, I would go back and listen to that episode because you'll see the transformation that happens from 1 year to the second year. You'll really see the journey that a young comedian has gone through in his career from a low point to a high point, and how we as comedians might find ourselves in a desperate situation thinking that everything is lost. But lo and behold, sometimes the right thing comes out of nowhere and saves the day. To give a Cliff's Note version of who Allen Strickland Williams is, if you absolutely insist on not listening to the first episode, I think we'll get you by the end, by the way. You'll want to go back and listen. But the Cliff's Notes version of Allen Strickland Williams 1 year ago was this. Just a few years prior, he had appeared for the first time on the Conan O'Brien show. He did a set there and was able to, for several years, ride out the success of that. That's a big thing to have on your resume, and he was able to tour on that, able to live the life of a professional comedian. He didn't have to have a day job. He was able to sustain himself from comedy. But then over the course of, I believe, another 2 years, that sort of started to wane. It started to peter out a little bit. The phone wasn't ringing as much, and Allen kind of had to figure out, all right, let's take stock of where I am and what I'm doing. And that is the moment that I had him on my podcast. Desperate situation, desperate financial situation, career confusion. Oh, that's the perfect time to start asking you, hey, what are you doing with your life? Now, at the moment that I interviewed him, he actually was right on the cusp of entering a new field. In addition to being a comedian, he also has begun a career as a copywriter for advertising agencies. And it's afforded him a safety net financially and also a new arena that he can express himself and his creativity. And now, a year later, Allen has come upon career success in that field, but also, and I think that the financial security has a little something to do with it, he was able to expand further in his comedy career as well. He was on Conan O'Brien again, and this January, he will be taping his first Comedy Central half hour in New Orleans. Allen, you did it. What a difference a year makes. So with that in mind, I was absolutely thrilled at the idea of having him come on the show and show the progression of low to high, because life is all about those lows and those highs, and somewhere in the middle is where we usually should be. And Allen has found himself in a much better situation than he was a year ago today. And I, for one, as his friend, am very glad that he's found himself in that position. So we're going to come out. This is part 2. Again, go back, listen to part 1, see how bleak things were, and then we'll see how things changed as the year went by. This is all a grand experiment. We've never done this before. This is the first time someone has returned to the show, and I would love to know what you think of it. I would also love to know, is there anybody that's been on the show before, past guests, that you're wondering, hey, where's their head at now? If you want to hear any updates of any other particular guests, please let me know. The show's email is in the show description, as well as the Twitter handle. You can hit it up on Facebook. However you want to do it, whatever your preferred mode of communication is, I would love to hear from each and every one of you. What did you like the part 2? Did we do something right? This could be a new feature on this show. So let me know what you think of part 2, and we'll do a few more of these. Also, the holidays are quickly upon us, and I believe the way that we're going to cap off this year is with some special episodes. This is what we're going to do. We've had a lot of great chats on this show over the past year and a half. We've also had a lot of great strats. That's strategies. So I'm going to do a little best of the chats, the best of the strats. That's a 2-part, 2-week series. It might even be 3 weeks if there's enough stuff. We'll find out. But that's coming at you. If you want a good way to catch up on some episodes you might not have listened to, preview some people you might not know about, this is a great way to do it. So that'll be coming out at the end of this year. I think it might be time to start the show. Let me think once more. Allen Strickland Williams. Part 2, email the show, Chats and Strats. That's a really clever name, by the way. Came up with it on my bike. Yeah, I think it's time to start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Allen Strickland Williams, Part 2 of Question Mark on this week's exit strategy. Here we go. To Austin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thursday.
It's a busy week. I want to thank you for coming in here.
I appreciate being asked to do anything. So thank you.
Squeezing me in because you're on your way to the Velveeta Room, I believe.
Yes, I'm doing the Velveeta Room Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
3 shows. All the info's on my website and their website, and probably another one.
There's probably a few other websites. I don't know if they have a comedy bureau in Austin, but if they do, it's probably saying Allen Strickland Williams.
I bet it's Texas, so they probably get some sort of like comedy rodeo.
Are you looking forward to heading down to Austin?
I am. I love Austin. I haven't been in years, and I really love that scene.
Yeah.
And some of the comics that I met, like the first time I went out, are still there. And then I've heard nothing but good things about the
Velveeta Room.
The Velveeta Room. I've heard a lot of good stuff about the Velve. Joe Quazal was just there, and he's talking it up. And yeah, I'm excited.
Joe Quazala, funny you should mention it, because I think we should say you've got like a big show coming up.
I got a big show.
The Velveeta Room is nice, but
hey, it's all one big show.
The life is a show.
It's all one big show.
But you were recently you were given a Comedy Central half hour.
I have that coming up in 2019.
Let me be the first person to congratulate you.
Thank you very much. Everyone else really hasn't said anything about it. No, I can't believe it. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
And this is I'm curious about both how you are preparing for that, because this is your first half hour special for television. But then also I want to sort of go back in time too, to where
we all.
I want to go back in time to where you were a year ago, because you are the first guest that I've had back on the show to do like a recap. And I think when you were here last time, you were not as celebratory.
No, I didn't have as much going on. I had negative stuff going on. But yeah, it's funny coming over here today. I was thinking just about how weird, and I think it's been. Has it been around a year since I was on? You said something like that.
It's been just over a year.
Okay, so that's just so like I was thinking, just like wow, a year ago I was like, life is just crazy. It's weird when you do have those moments where you actually like take a breath and take stock of everything. And yeah, I can't believe it. It's and not just that, but other stuff in my life is it's been a crazy year, but I definitely feel very rarely, I think, do you ever get to feel like you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And right now I feel like I'm on the right track.
And that's why I wanted to have you on too, because I felt like because the reason I had you on for the first time was because you did a show, you did my show, Sauce.
Right.
And I could tell you were in a moment where you were like reflecting on what am I doing with my life. Yeah. And I had just started this podcast about what am I doing with my life. Perfect fit. But then over the course of this past year, I mean, it's visible even to me that you've kind of righted that ship a little bit and you've moved on to something bigger for the beginning of 2019. So I kind of want to see a bit of the journey and how you're going to look into the future after 2019.
Well, it's funny. When we were talking, I definitely was. I was coming off the ass end of some success a couple years before, And I felt like I was doing all those things you're supposed to do, writing the things, having the samples, doing the meetings, and it just didn't materialize into anything else. And that's when I the thing that was so existential about it was realizing that, okay, I basically at this point look at the comedy and the entertainment industry as like, I'm not a religious person, but because I do comedy, I basically believe in God. Like, there's basically this thing out there that is bigger than me, that works in ways I do not understand, that sometimes tests you and sometimes rewards you and sometimes punishes you, because I'm naughty. But so I kind of like, once I looked at it that way, I was like, okay, well, let's just figure out how to do those bare, like, I just need like money to live. I need to not feel like a fucking loser.
Like reassess what you're doing.
And also, I didn't have much at my disposal. I had like a 3-year gap in my resume, which is fine. My resume is not stellar, but I've worked on some cool things. I've done some things that people, would at least recognize in an interview or could at least get me in the door. But I had this big gap. I also was just like, and it, now I've been freelancing a lot more, but I mean, I was feral. Like, I was like, I would go into an office and I'd just be like, fuck, like, God, like, I'm like, oh God, they all know, they can smell it on me. So yeah, I kind of like, was just like, I was like grasping for something, and I didn't even have a car to like, to do. It was bleak. I was borrowing a friend's car to do Postmates. I was renting a car to do Postmates. I rented a car to do Postmates, and then I got a flat tire, which like fucked my life up so bad with like insurance that I had to deal with and this like hold on my credit card, and just eventually piece by piece, and a lot of it is you realize what's going on, and there are some, I updated my resume. I started asking around. I got some leads on some stuff, but a lot of it is just like, oh wow, right place, right. The situation I've been now came up through a friend who was asked to go into freelance. He was working a full-time job at the time. He couldn't do it. He said my name, and I think at the time the company I'm working for, they were so hectic with their schedule that they kind of were just like, does he have a computer? Can he write a sentence? Like, let's just get him in here. And then I think turns out I'm actually good at copywriting, which if anyone would like a semi-professional comedian to, come up with some copy,
he's available.
I'm always looking for more avenues of work, but yeah, it was so bleak, and it got to the point where I started to just feel fucking crazy doing stand-up and comedy in general, because I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I here? There's nothing to show for it. There's nothing to look forward to.
And this is when I said, Alan, please come on my podcast.
Yeah, and I was like, geez, okay. Yeah, because I remember I did your great show Sauce, and I remember like I just walked off the stage and I was like, well, that could probably be the last time I ever do comedy. That's fine. But even then, it was such a like exit, like just because I didn't know where to go. I was looking up like correspondence law schools. Like, what the fuck was I don't know.
Anything, really. You were kind of grasping at straws. I went back and listened to the episode just to kind of put myself back to where you were. I mean, basically, the Cliff's Notes of your life at that point was that you would have been on Conan, you had some success, and then you got to kind of be a comedian professionally for a little bit of time, and then that sort of had run its course, and this is where we find you.
Right.
And you would say, if I may quote Allen Strickland Williams.
Wow.
Sorry to do this.
I got to clear it with the guys, but yeah.
You said that 2017 was objectively the worst year of your adult life.
That's definitely true. Yeah. Without a doubt, and that's kind of what's been surprising about this little moment of like looking back. Like 2018 has been really. There've been, obviously, I'm on more of a positive trajectory. I feel better as well, which I think plays a big part of it. But I've had some things happen this year that have been like completely wild and insane. So It really is. And I have this whole chip on my shoulder about turning 30. Like everyone was like, when you turn 30, you get to find out who you are. Whatever. I'm like, give me the blackout ignorant bliss of 20s. Like that's much more comfortable. You know, you're just sort of like bouncing around.
Yeah, you kind of can do it. You're like invincible to a point.
Right. And that's been a thing that has happened recently is I've kind of like, oh, maybe this iteration of where I'm at right now, maybe this, hopefully, this will be sort of set the tone for the rest of the 30s, or however long it goes.
When did you turn 30 specifically?
I turned 30.
When did this in the timeline?
January of let's see, I'm turning 33 next, so this was 32, 31. So 2016, I guess I turned 30. Is that right? Am I doing that math right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm over 30.
Right in. So
hey, if anyone's counting on their fingers and toes at home, send me a DM. Help me out.
How old is Allen Strickland Williams? We'd love to hear from you at Exit Strategy Pod. But then that was right there in that time when you were. It was kind of like because you kind of got to tell me what you were doing post Conan. You were kind of
I was touring a lot, and
I
was writing, and I had some success selling some stuff, and I was getting to like poke into writers' rooms here and there.
You had some momentum career wise, really going,
and it felt good. Yeah. Like it just felt like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I felt good at that. And then it was one of those things too where it's like I was primarily, my most consistent work was on the road, and I think that's pretty much what happened was I got everywhere I could get on, either on my own or with the people that my manager or whatever you want to say. I had exhausted all those venues, and I mean exhausted. Oh boy,
we had some long shows,
But yeah, so I kind of was just like, okay, and then in and of itself, that was a good lesson because, this stuff is cyclical, and I've heard a lot of comedians talk about that, and yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where I was just like, gosh, I really just need something to have for like the bare essentials of life, and then also something to like not feel like a total. Like a failure. That's how I felt. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had nothing going on. And it was really, and I'm like, I think I actually have more of like a resiliency than I think I do. But in my head, when I'm feeling that, I'm just like, fuck it. It's like, let's just walk into the ocean. Like,
let's see how bad we can make this.
Yeah, exactly. So I was. It was a real struggle to not give into that, and I also I mean since I started stand up I've probably quit 7 times, like in my head, like especially those first 2 years. So it's like, well,
it'll push you.
It really does.
It really will. And it's funny that you said that about your resiliency because, and then also and we'll talk about it. I think a little bit later about how you sort of segued your skills into. Some stability with a copywriting backup. I think we sort of forget. We feel like losers for a lot of our career because we don't make any money, and if you can't afford to buy yourself dinner or whatever, that makes you feel like really low. But at the same time, we are kind of amassing this bundle of skills that no one else has that come in handy. We just don't know where to apply them.
Right.
And the resiliency, I think, is definitely one of them.
It's also interesting you said because I always think of like the fact that you kind of like flounder. Is it flounder or founder?
I think you flounder unless you are the one that did it first. Then you are the founder.
So the founder floundered at the box office, not Bafo.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry if you made the founder.
Sorry, the founder.
I totally forget what I was saying, by the way. But basically, I don't know. It really. Oh, this is what I was going to say. The thing about comedy that's really frustrating, is specifically with stand-up, I don't know if people that exclusively write or act or whatever do, but with stand-up. It's like you're either the biggest fucking loser in the world or you're king fucking shit. Yeah. And that's like a real like, whoop. Like, whoa.
It's got a built-in bipolarity to it that'll really test your spirit.
It's like you're either getting beer bottles thrown at you or like they're carrying you on their shoulders. So it really was this sort of like, oh, okay, I can walk into a room of however many people and with confidence do the set, interact, show the folks a good time. I can't make minimum wage. Like I can't find somewhere that can use me, exploit me.
There's got to be somewhere in the middle.
I thought this was late capitalism. I thought they were just
there's so many opportunities. You just got to get out there and push it and want it. But you got to this point where you were on my show and you were feeling the burn. The burn.
Yeah.
Now, a year later, you're heading to Austin. Not just anybody goes to Austin.
I'm excited.
But you're also doing the Comedy Central half hour, which is a pretty substantial career milestone. I mean, it's the kind of thing we watched when we were kids. Like, people rise up through the ranks from that.
I specifically remember the Hedberg, Bamford's. I think Bamford had a couple, and then Galifianakis. Like, those are especially when I first started comedy, like those are what I would watch to like when you pretend you're studying comedy and you're like figuring it out, you know. I remember the first time I saw Bamford's and she does that joke about like trying to find someone and it's like the dating profile or whatever, and she's like, I'm looking for someone who has the other half of this golden locket. I'm like, oh, this is like so funny. So yeah, and that was a process in and of itself, and I don't know if I'm supposed to go too much into detail about how it works, but it's like I was on their radar because I was you
were a comic to watch.
I was a comic to watch. I think they might call it something different now, but someone was watching me, and
as instructed,
someone
the comics to watch list is just an internal memo for the staff. Like, you guys should watch these people.
Guys, really keep an eye on these guys. We're really worried about them. And then you submit a tape and they have different rounds. Yeah. And I remember submitting, and it's weird and this almost again goes to the fact that I'm like, you kind of have to just let go and let God, because I'm like, there was a tape I submitted prior that I was like, if I don't get it this time, they're never going to give it to me. You know, that thing. And like, I had like applause breaks or like, and I was like, that's it. It's time. Bam. And I didn't get it. And I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, Jesus, and then I felt, and then it's weird too, cause it's like what I submitted, I felt was really solid, but but then again, I'm like, maybe I'm not the best barometer of, and maybe there's other factors.
There's also a lot of other factors.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you got to consider like the style of comedians that are all like. I mean, you just have
to
fit
where
in
a
pulling
people from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There might just been too many LA comics or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and so that's like a really sort of interesting thing. But and now I'm just sort of like, I will say, and I was in this headspace, and I don't try to replicate it or be in that sort of space of feeling like you don't have anything to look forward to, because I know how hard it is. But it's one of those things I sympathize with a lot, because these moments in comedy, these moments like this, they're very rare. I mean, they're just very rare. Yeah. Like, like even people that are working regularly, I see comics all the time that I'm like, oh my God, your career is like, you're basically you're set, and I'll still see them complain about not getting this thing or being overlooked for a thing, and I'm just like, wow, okay, well, it never ends. Great,
it never ends.
Fantastic. But it is one of those things where I'm glad that I think I am doing a pretty good job of being like grateful and just like keeping my head down, and both doing the work that I need to do apart from comedy. And like, I've been very, Dave Ross. Dave Ross is someone that I always think of as like, he can just make stuff happen. Like he can just like,
he's got hustle.
Oh God. And I'm like, I have whatever the of hustle is.
No, he'll stay up.
I've give up.
He'll be up like literally all night, every night, like planning his own tour. Like there's some real.
And I'm trying to. So that's what I'm trying to do in January. The tapings at the end of January. So what I've been trying to do is, just say, okay, well, I'm like, fuck, I have to go like drive my car into the middle of the country in fucking January, but I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be good, and it's gonna get me as close as I can get to perfection for the taping. Yeah, and then I can. Oh God! And now I'm even saying, I'm like, then I got to write new fucking material. Has anyone ever written a new joke?
No.
I don't know where these jokes came from. I didn't write them. They're not new.
There's people out there that started in like, I don't know, 80, 82. Mm-hmm. They're still doing the same damn act. Yeah. You don't have to write new material. What is this rule that says, Yeah.
So oh boy, so much to look forward to. But yeah, so that's kind of like what, and yeah, I'm just trying to like put my head down, keep it going, and also let it, if I do this, what I really also want to be okay with is I do this thing, and maybe it doesn't immediately translate into continued work in comedy or a steady gig or whatever. I want to have set up my life in a way so that doesn't devastate me to my core.
Yeah. No, I think
which I'm working on.
I always looked at comedy this way when I got a couple of years into it. I remember when we start, you only have done a handful of sets, so just like the ratio of success to failure, like if you have one shitty set, it has such a higher percentage of the sets you've done, and then eventually you just sort of have done so many sets that like really who cares,
right?
Unless it's like a particularly bad bomb, it really doesn't. I don't remember it the next day, and I think it's probably the same. I would suspect it's the same thing with career, where I mean, if you have this major moment in your life, you've never experienced it before, where now you're on this television platform. Mm-hmm. If that goes sour in any way, for the first time, that's obviously devastating. But I mean, I feel like it's just careers even out. And it's just with time, you'll be like, oh, yeah, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of my life.
And I also feel like there are very few instances of half hours, specials, late night sets that I can even think of as being like objectively bad. that maybe even the performer themselves would say that. I think a lot of this stuff is pretty much designed for you to succeed, and it's like, even if you're not super thrilled about it, like you still did it, and in a couple years, no one's going to remember, anyway. Like they're going to remember that you did it. So it's
I don't know. They might. I think the right people will remember.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the cool things about it is, I mean, as we were talking about before, like we watched Bamford and Patton Oswalt, and all those people that are now very successful, like actually objectively successful. We watched them as like high school and college kids.
Young,
so like I guess like I don't know, the cool thing that I think about it is that
going to connect with some future
you're like
some young Allen Strickland Williams.
You're planting the seeds a little bit. You're kind of beginning to start the movement.
Yeah.
But like imagine that, like people might memorize your jokes.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
That's I kind of, not to get too even like what you do or why you do what you, but I've always been I just kind of do what I think is funny. So there's got to be some people that they'll think it's funny, maybe even if it doesn't like go over huge. Like hopefully it'll mean something to somebody. But I don't know. Even that, I'm trying to just like really like almost put on blinders and just sort of like be. I'm kind of like, even I've been thinking about this tour. I'm like, I know I'm going to be freezing and I'm going to be driving and I'm going to be alone for like 10 hours at a time. Some of these stretches I'm running, like I've set up what looks like a pretty good tour, but I don't know what's going to fall through. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm kind of just like going to be like, you know what? Just like treat it like you're a traveling salesman and just like hitting the spots and
you're really just doing the work.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be glory in that. That's just hard work.
Right.
Where you how many cities are you hitting? Where are you going?
It looks like the basic what kind of is happening right now go up to wine country, do a brewery in Healdsburg, go over to Salt Lake City, go to Denver, go to Nebraska,
Omaha.
I'll do Lincoln and Omaha. Do some shows in Iowa. Go down to Arkansas, I believe, and then go to Oklahoma, and then go to Albuquerque, and then hit Arizona, and then come back to LA, and then fly to New Orleans.
I think that'll be a pretty good workout.
I think so too.
Because I mean, you're really also getting like so many different types of people and places.
I've never really done this. I've usually done the thing where like I've gone out, I think, for like a week up the West Coast, or like I've spent a week in Denver. I've done some clubs, but I usually like go there and come back. Even if I'm traveling a lot, it's usually these disparate like trips. Yeah. So I'm excited to do the like thing and like
every day a new city.
Yeah. Oh God. It's going to be so cold.
Yeah. Are you going out solo, or you got somebody?
I'm gonna go alone. Yeah, because it's just I think it'd be much more fun with someone else, but the way I'm kind of looking at this is like I'm not really doing this to have fun. I'm doing this to like do it, and not that I don't want to have fun on stage. Obviously, I do, but like I just want to do it. I just want to do it, and I don't want to be distracted. And I'm even thinking I'm gonna really try not to like drink, which is like we'll see how long that fucking lasts. But like,
you'll be all right in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Now I take it as a challenge. I'll find it.
There's got to be a speakeasy somewhere in this damn town.
But yeah, so I'm sort of I'm like oddly excited. Like but then it's interesting too, because just this week I got called back into work at the place I've been freelancing, and they're so busy, and like there's even a part of me that almost wishes like I could be here to work more and make a little bit more money there and get some more work under my belt. But I'm just like, these are good problems to have. Yeah, this is like literally the opposite of where I was in this very chair.
You have too many opportunities now, whereas before you didn't have any. I just want to touch on one more thing about sort of just one more reflective
touch.
Let me just touch it real quick. So you've had the success before. Actually, we forgot to mention you did Conan again.
I did, yes,
in that little window of time.
And that was sort of that's when things started to turn around. Yeah, actually, it kind of felt like that was like a real. And even else, like when I taped the thing too, that the submission that got the thing, like you could not have seen someone that did not want to do it more. That did not want to do comedy. That was sure that everything was done, that it was all for naught. So I mean, and then these things just, I mean, Conan thing didn't happen totally out of nowhere because I'd done it before and there's a relationship there. But I mean, it did. He called and was like, "Hey, you got a set? You want to do it tomorrow?" And I was just like,
really?
Yeah.
It was that quick?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh, that is stressful, I'm thinking about.
Well, I actually liked it better than the first time, because the first time I had a week, which obviously they're going to want people to have more time, their first go out. But I'm a big let's get it over with. Yeah. Like, I've always liked taking the bullet first at open mics. Like, I love when people put me first in the lineup, because then I can relax and enjoy it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, let's get this going. I kind of feel like the tour is going to be good for that too. Is that it'll keep me moving, it'll keep me kinetic, which I feel like is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the middle of all this shit show, all of a sudden Conan hits. They're like, "Are you ready?" That to me is. I feel like that is how it always happens, where you're just like out of nowhere, bam.
Well, and that was I really was. I think it was maybe the second or third time I'd gone into work at this agency I work at, and I remember that earlier that day, just kind of sitting there thinking, I like this. Yeah, this is I can do this. This is fine.
It's not bad.
And then it's just like I get a call, and I'm like, okay, we're back. Okay.
I'm gonna need tomorrow off.
Yeah. And that was actually, and the funny thing about that too is that they knew I had done Conan before on my resume. That is actually what they said. They said, "We watched your Conan. You're funny. You seem clever. You seem like you can write. Come in and do this." But that, I think, really solidified me as a creative. And in that world, in that specific role, it's beneficial. Every other job I've ever worked, they're like, you don't want to tell anyone you do comedy or let them know. Like,
no, we talked about it.
You
want to keep that very secret.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now it's this weird thing where it's like, oh, and I was also working there when I found out about Comedy Central. I got the call when I was sitting in the same chair at the conference table. And it's one of those things, too. It's like, oh, this like has reinforced me as a... Now if they're especially if they're working on, they do a lot of entertainment properties. If they're working on a comedy movie or a comedy TV show, they can say, hey, we got this guy who's like a comedian.
You have some cachet at this place.
So that was like, and again, that's the thing too, where I really do have to shake my head and be like, God, like this is like a really happy turn of events that like, you feel like you have nothing. And now it's like, okay, these pieces that I never expected to even put together that I didn't have this time, 3 months ago, now are like, am I building a house? Like, what am I doing? What is
Something
this?
Something is forming.
Probably a condo, let's be honest.
The housing market. I didn't get to touch. I got sidetracked.
Sorry.
I wanted to touch on one more.
I swatted you away.
I want to touch one more reflective moment. So you had your Conan success, the first one, and you got to ride that wave out, and that kind of it did not go as far as you probably had hoped. Now that you are entering this second sort of level up with the Comedy Central half hour, are you going to approach the takeoff from that and sustainment of that differently? Do you have any sort of concerns about that?
That's actually a good question because I'm realizing now I don't really have a plan. But I think that it will. I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm like, after I tape this thing, I want to go to Hawaii and sit on my ass for a week. But what will most likely happen is there'll be some places that maybe wouldn't have given me the time of day and that's the way it works. Like, you cobble together these credits. Maybe you have a successful podcast or a really strong following, or you've done a lot of late night, or you've been on this and that. And I would imagine it will lead to some more work. But again, it's sort of the thing where I'm like, it does seem like there's some sort of like, the less I put all on comedy, the more it rewards me. So what I want to do is I do genuinely want to generate new material so that I have a new act and maybe even revisit some places I've been before and some towns I've been to before. But I really do just want to keep the other stuff going, the copywriting thing, because that way it all goes to, I realized in the past year, the thing that stresses me out the most is money. Not having money, being broke, more than anything else in the world stresses me out, and it leads to a lot of bad behavior, and it leads to a lot of like self-hatred and a lot of stuff like that. So for me, I'm almost more, it sounds weird, but I'm almost more focused on keeping both things moving forward at least a little bit than saying like, okay, I'm going to do the Comedy Central thing, then I'm going to really push, which also I'm sure to some degree will happen naturally. This time I'll hopefully be ready and understand that it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work everywhere. And it's not going to lead to every door that's closed right now being open. There still are going to be these doors that are closed. And I'm just trying to be like zen and take what comes my way about it.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not trying to just be like checked out, but I'm not trying to put so much on it that if something doesn't go the way I envisioned, that it leads to a like spiral,
a horrific crash.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, because last time you did it, you kind of hopped out there without a net. Now, at least with this other source of income, you have a safety net there.
Yeah, which
will be.
It's so hard to come.
You'll soar higher.
I hope. I do feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more like capable of getting stuff done these days. But yeah, that's like, and it's one of those things too, where it's like just today, the sort of more, I guess you'd say like the business guy at the office I work at was like, your work's really good. We know you have stuff coming up, but we're going to be busy as hell. Just letting you know, we want you as much as you want us. And I was like, I want you. I want you so badly. I want it all.
Yes, sir.
And so that's sort of like, I'm like, okay, and maybe even, I also have never been a really great long-term planner. The older I get, the better I get at it. But when I don't know, I'm an idiot. So when I was young, I was like, oh, okay, I did this thing. This is just going to keep going, and I'll be fine. Now I'm like, okay, if I set these two things in motion like this, they could maybe even somehow, maybe not mutually benefit each other, but interact, work towards me like having just an overall more stable sort of existence.
You're diversifying like what you do in your life. I mean, it's the same as if you just had if you were on a softball team or something. Like there's just elements of your life that make you a more well-rounded person.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you got to have that. You got to have some sort of you can't just have only comedy in your life. I've never. It's not enough.
Yeah, and I really feel like, and it's one of those things where it's like you kick yourself, but then I don't know. It's just the longer you do it, the only way, at least the only way I learn lessons is by going through them.
Yeah. And
no one told me about that part. No one told me about this is going to dry up at some point.
There's no there are lessons to be learned from older comics, but I feel like just the game has changed it so much in how what a career trajectory is. That I don't know. I think you're forging down this path that has not really been made before.
Well, and everyone has their own path too. So it's like you can't bank on anything. You got to kind of figure out what works for you, and then just try to replicate that. So that's sort of my 2019. I don't know if I call it a resolution, but it's just sort of like let's keep all this moving forward.
That's where your head will be at.
Hopefully next year I'm in a better. Or actually, I'll take lateral. I'll take lateral next year.
No, dude, we got to get you in movies. We got to get you a sitcom, or we got to get you in movies.
Okay. Well, I only do multicam. I only do multicam movies.
I got the 3 camera setup for my movie and a studio audience. All right. Well,
I'm winning a Tony.
If you are the first person on the podcast to do a second episode and EGOT. Alan, that's pretty impressive. Well, we've never had a second timer on the show, but it is called Exit Strategy. So I guess we do have to. I mean, last time you came on, you did give the exit strategy is that you wanted to get into copywriting. You thought that would be a good path to go down, and obviously it has been.
But it's got me further into comedy.
Yeah, well, you can't shake it. It's coming to find out. You're the test study. Every year, on the year, we're going to have Alan in here. We're going to see where he is in his life. You're going to be like those British Up series documentaries.
Oh, I remember that 7 Up or whatever.
Yeah. We should take a picture.
Make 7 Up yours, right? That's what you're talking
about?
Exactly.
The little guy with sunglasses, the little red dot. So you had that exit strategy last time. Would you like to come up with a new one? Would you like to change it, or would you like to explore this one?
I really do, and I even want to learn more about the advertising world and get to the point where I'm helping to bring in business and stuff like that. I think that I don't know. I like it. It's fun to be. Being in an office when you're a wild animal is always kind of a little crazy, but it's cool to be creative.
Yes.
In that office setting, you're considered creative, which is cool.
Yeah, well, you're looked to come up with ideas, which is something that I don't know about you, but every other job I've ever had.
No, they don't want ideas.
No ideas. We don't need your ideas. We need you to just do this thing in the spreadsheet, and that's all.
Your ideas are bad, and you have too many of them. Be quiet.
Yes, and you come in late every day.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've got this job where, you even said it then that you really... the thing that you wanted to do when you came to Los Angeles is that you wanted to get into development. You wanted to pitch ideas. Yeah. You wanted to create.
I still actually like that. Yeah. I like that. Because I basically just like the medium of specifically TV, and especially now it's there's so many shows out there that don't exist yet. And we know so many people that could write them, and that to me is I don't know. But that's also coming from I worked as an assistant, I worked as a page, and I saw it, and there is this like mystical, again, going back to the like, how does this work, and why that show? That show's bad. Like, not that show. That show's good. Why'd you cancel that? And then you do understand ratings and how all that stuff works. It would be interesting to get further into that, and that's what I enjoy most about comedy. I mean, I started doing stand-up because an agent friend or like someone I got set up with on an informational meeting, not even a general, like the lesser tier of the fake meetings, was like, basically it was just like, you want to be a writer? No one knows who you are. You want to be funny? I was like, oh yeah. And he goes, do sketches or whatever. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know anyone in Los Angeles at the time. So like, do stand up, write jokes, get out there on your own. So I was always like, okay, I'll do the stand up and then I can write and then I can pitch and sell and produce and all that stuff. I'll be brought into room. I mean, like, my dream job is to be a punch up writer. Like, that's the dream to me, is to just like, someone give me a thing. I work on it. I'll make it funnier, and then I can do it from home and do that. But I've kept getting opportunities, and it's gone well. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess if I'm good at this, but I never ever thought that I would be like a person that's why really hard for me to believe. I feel like I'm still the person who like couldn't take the microphone out of the stand. Like I was like scared. I was like, you just stare at my. I mean, you saw me. Like, so it's been very like. Those are the moments when you're kind of like, oh wow, I guess I actually have gotten better.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it seems nuts that doing stand up was never really your final goal, because you kind of you fell into a nice rhythm and niche.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
But now you've got this other side of your personality that you want to sort of create things behind the scenes, sort of bigger things. Like,
I just get tired. Stand-up is really great, and the instant gratification about it is, I think, what...
Yeah.
That can go, obviously, negative or positive. I think that's, like, one of the biggest things that I was going for it. Also, it is... if you're having a good stand-up set, you're the coolest person in the room. That's cool.
You're invincible.
That's great. And it's one of those things where people are just kind of scared to get up in front of people. So it's one of those things that seems like a superpower, even though it's probably a deeply narcissistic character flaw. But to me, it's kind of like, well, I would like to translate that into something that's a little more sustainable, that you feel like you can, like, I used to make stuff all the time, and that was cool to, like, you make stuff and then you can, like, watch it all and it's, like, all out there. Like, I do feel like I have been kind of feeling this urge to make something, and I've never even directed anything, but to the point where I'm like, maybe I should try to find a DP and, like, just make something happen, which also I've never been really the person to do that, so maybe that's why it's taken so long or whatever. But that is kind of like what I would hope to get done in the next year, in addition to what I also want to do is I would like to start making some more stuff, because it does feel a little bit like stand-up is just so ephemeral.
I was just going to use the word ephemeral, and you beat me to it. I wanted to be like, well, it is an ephemeral.
Right. I mean, it is.
But I was listening back today. That was one of the things that was your frustration a year ago, was that you had put in all of this work for almost a decade, and so much of it is just fleeting and non-existing. It just doesn't exist. I mean, when you boil it down, like, what people can actually watch is such a small fraction of the work that you put into it. Whereas if you create a show, if you create a short, if you create a campaign, there's tangible evidence of your work.
Yeah, it's true. And even with the copywriting thing, I will say it feels cool to be scrolling through something, or to, like, look around and be like, oh, I actually wrote that sentence. Like, that's kind of cool, I don't know.
Does it bother you to be anonymous, though, when you do that, though? Because it's
not at all.
You don't mind the...
No.
You don't want a little ASW, all rights reserved next to it?
No. You can pretend whoever wrote it.
So what
I do it for the love of the game.
What would be your trajectory up the advertising ladder? Are we looking? Would you like to be a, dare I say, Don Draper? Head of creative.
No, I don't know if I should be head of anything, but I do think I could be a nice sort of, like, floating consulting part, like some sort of, like, I am, well, because I realize I'm like, oh, I know people that are making movies and TV shows, at some point I might be able to bring business in.
Yeah.
And I think you get like a cut of the business.
Yeah.
And then like on everything that they make for that client and like perpetuity. So it's like, wow, that could be like a really like easy passive way to A, do something creative, B, make money, and not just do those two things, but do them with people I'm at least friendly with or respect and like their work.
That's going to be a good working relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, and that's the other thing about stand-up is it is lonely, obviously. So it's like, you know, I've had so many birthdays on the road where I'm like alone, you know, and so it's like it is kind of nice to like, I just start crying. It is like nice to work with someone else. Yeah. That is a fun energy that like you do. I think kind of like, and I guess stand up does have a camaraderie to it, but to me it has always felt very solo.
Not when it matters.
Yeah,
I mean when
it's
you're
just
up there,
you.
it's just you, and then afterwards it's the handful of people that you are drinking with that night.
Right.
Really.
Right. Who are all kind of sharing a conversation, but really it's just their same old talking points over and over.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very solo game. Well, I think if I had to go into the Mad Men analogies, and that's how I will view advertising until I die.
Oh yeah, whenever I work there, I just go, sorry, I got to be a madman. If anyone asks me if I like can hang out, I'm like, nah, madmaning right now.
Madman tonight. I believe that in your case, if you're sort of a floating creative that's bringing in business, I think you're Duck Phillips.
Oh, I like Duck.
I think you're Duck. Yeah, I think you're Duck.
I got to rein in the drinking, but yeah, or I guess they all do.
Yeah, he pulled it together at the end.
It is. Duck did pull it together. I rewatched Mad Men after starting this job, and it is funny how much of a perspective on it. Yeah, and I'm sympathizing with Peggy so much, and yeah, it's cool.
My every day at our agency is just sort of, all right, who is the Roger? Who's the Harry? Like,
we all want to be Roger.
We can't all be Roger.
We can't all be Roger.
I can only view it through I'm like, if this job title does not correspond with a Mad Men character, it's probably superfluous. We probably need to let that person go.
I do like Don I like how Don always goes on these like wild like trips by himself. I can kind of see
that kind of is element. You know, you kind of are a Don Draper because you're not.
I'm a big Irish goodbye guy too. Like I do that a lot.
Okay, you might not be Duck. You might be Don because you're
under. But I don't want to say I'm Don
because you didn't sign the contract.
Look, I'm not as much of a family man as Don.
We'll get you a Sally one of these days. But I think that I'm glad that you are on. I'm glad that we got this companion piece to the last episode, and I would urge everybody to listen to Alan's first episode and then come back and listen to this one because I think you'll see sort of a low to a high.
I'd also say like just generally I don't know who's listening, but like it, like I can't believe that it has kind of come back around and I have stuff to look forward to. It is on some level like the only thing you can do, and this is what everyone says, the only thing you can do is just keep going. Yeah. And that is like sort of the thing where it's like, they were right.
As much as you hated it, we told you you're gonna be all right, and look what happened. You're all right. Mm-hmm. We're gonna take a little break, Alan.
Great.
We're gonna come back, and you know what time it is. You're a returning guest. It's sponsor time.
Yeah.
Now you've had some success in the past. We'll see what happens this week. We're gonna be right back with more Alan Strickland Williams on Exit Strategy. Reflective of like how real a concern that is than living in Los Angeles. I mean, like you can see a definitive increase in people living in cars, living on the street. Mm-hmm. So like that got very real.
Comedians,
for me. Yeah,
friends.
The real life consequences were because I don't know, for like when you're a certain age, I feel like you're just like, oh, it'll work out, but then. And I think that is true to an extent, but there's also like, you do need to like...
You got to figure it out.
You got to figure it out.
And it's hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember thinking that too. I was like, God, I felt like I couldn't even like update my resume because I was like, God, I really need to like borrow someone's car and go work Postmates right now for 12, 13 hours just to scrape by.
Yeah.
Which, that's part of life, and there's a lot of people that have to do that, and there's a lot of, and I always think about that too. I was always like, I'm a single guy with no one depending on me besides myself, and there are people with families that have to work like this and another job, and I just it definitely made me like very interested in like government assistance programs and stuff like that.
Oh, I found out about it. Like there was a point in time where I went through this to unemployment. I went through the food stamps. Like I went through the being denied some stuff, the Medicaid program. I gained such a level of empathy for how hard it is to traverse those systems.
Oh, it is. It's not easy.
And they are all set up, from what I can tell, for an English-speaking person. Mm-hmm. If you had any sort of, if you did not speak the language, if you had any sort of hardship about like you had a family, you maybe couldn't make it to the office. Like there's so many different ways that you can be cut off from essential life-saving programs.
It's not like it's super. Those forms are not super easy.
No.
They're definitely not fun to fill out. And then it's like trying to do it online is like the biggest headache, and like the system's obviously not as good as it should be because they're not getting as much money as they should to like make it as easy as it is to go on Facebook or whatever. Like, you have
to work for it.
It's definitely forced me into the like, God, I hope I'm a socialist forever sort of mindset because it's just like, oh, it's just hard. Acting as if you can just work your way out of something is like, it's just not true.
A bullshit philosophy. But I hope that with success in life, I don't get to the point where I forget that I went through that.
Well,
I don't know what keeps you humble at that point.
I think the system also wants you to forget. I think it's like you get rewarded with money, and then your life gets really comfortable, and then you're like, oh, it's always been like this. And it's like, no, you're just protecting yourself from how awful it used to be.
Yeah, no, you got very lucky.
Yeah.
And it worked out okay. Alan, it is time for you to get fucking rich. We've reached the sponsorship portion of the show. Now, this is the philosophy.
This is what I've been waiting for.
This is one of my favorite segments of the show, and there's only 2 segments, so you do the math. Okay. Now, the philosophy behind this segment was that I don't have podcast ads because I'm not talking about a favorite murder or whatever. Or I'm not Mark Maron. Mm-hmm. But you got to have ads on a podcast.
You're not Mark Maron?
Oh, hey,
I could have sworn the gates were locked when I came in. Probably made that same exact joke on the way.
Probably did. But I wanted to have some podcast ads, so I thought, hey, I'm going to ask the people that are on the show to just talk about things that they like in the hopes that maybe that company, that product would hear it and be interested in that person. Now, Alan, it's only happened a handful of times, but it worked for you. You sung the praises of a product, and you got yourself a free bottle of Nolitz gin.
That's right, and not just any bottle. It also had my name on it.
Your name was engraved onto the bottle.
Which, if you know me, it's a big deal.
Big
I like
engraver.
That. Yeah.
Big engraver.
I like engraving things. I like engraving bottles of alcohol. Yeah, and you know what's funny? Now that I'm actually thinking about it, that was like such a big win for me at the time. Like looking back on it now, and I'm not even trying to downplay it, but I remember that having just being like, maybe it is all going to be okay.
They liked you. They saw a spark in you, and they said, this guy we might want to get on our team. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. I have a feeling I know the answer. Who is the sponsor for this week's episode of Exit Strategy?
I'm going to have to go with Nolitz Gin. Nolitz Silver Dry Gin. Yeah, it's so good. It makes me feel good. It tastes good.
You were convincing me to drink it, and I do not like gin.
It's a great gin. You don't even need to order it dirty. You can. I mean, I would drink when I got Conan.
Yeah.
I hadn't touched it because I told myself, I was like, I'm not touching this until something fucking good happens in my life, and it did. And I just had like a by myself, just over ice. It was perfect.
What a celebratory moment!
Oh, it tasted so good. It was like, and I actually just finished it, like maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it was like late at night, and some friends were scrounging around. And I was like, okay, I got
a little
we
something.
got this. Yeah.
So he needs another bottle.
So I could use number 2.
And you need it for celebratory moments. You're about to do your first...
I'll take it on the road. I won't take it on the road, but I'll I'm not going to drink it. I'm not going to drink straight off the bottle on the road.
Just have it on... How about this? Would you make this deal? I don't know that we can clear this because you're probably performing in some bars.
Right.
But if Nolet's Gin sends you a bottle, will you promise to have it sitting on the stool?
I will promise
for
that.
every
and I don't care what the bars say. I will promise that. If Nolet sends me another bottle, I will talk about it. I will talk about it on stage, and they probably don't even care about that. They probably would want me to talk about it online.
Online, yeah.
Shit like that. But yeah, it really is like the best liquor. I just love it. It tastes so good.
If he gets it in time, you might be able to work it into your act.
I'll take one out. I'll take a martini out. I'll take a Nolet's martini out on stage for the Comedy Central thing.
You said that you performed with a martini and that it was a powerful drug.
It felt right. Yeah. I totally get why they invented Las Vegas and all that stuff.
What do you get any input into? That just reminds me of Comedy Central Presents. That they got to the point where there was like custom things. Do you get any input into like what the look of it is?
I'm not exactly sure. I believe that this series, the half hour is a little bit more stark stage.
Yeah.
Cool graphic of your name behind you, and that's it. I think we moved beyond the days of like, hey guys, welcome to my apartment.
Set to side.
Or like if they have a lot of stories about being a teacher, it's like there's like a chalkboard up there.
There's like, didn't Dane Cook have like a circus or something, like a band circus? I don't know, but I think you need to just come to the show with your own. Like I got a truck pulling up. We got to unload these pallets.
Just some like weird Dada art.
Or a bottle of Nolet's Gin. That's your sponsor for this week's episode.
Absolutely.
Let's see what happens. I'm kind of curious. Now, obviously, we've talked about the show this Saturday at the Velveeta Room.
The Velveeta, December 14th and 15th.
14th and 15th.
Yeah.
So
Friday, one show on Friday, 2 on Saturday.
If you're in Austin, that's still an opportunity to go see that. But if people want to know more about Allen Strickland Williams, where do you point them? What is the thing you want them to see or hear or read?
You can go to my website, allenstricklandwilliams.com, but I just say check out my Twitter, check out Instagram. It's just totally Allen on everything.
Totally Allen. You got it on everything? That's the way you got to do it. You can't have a different handle, I've come to find out. There's so many rules for being a professional freelance entertainer of any kind. It's very frustrating. Check Allen Strickland Williams out. And if you haven't listened to the companion piece to this, the part 1 of what I'm sure is going to be a 40-part series of checking in with Allen Strickland Williams every winter time, start your journey there. Binge it. I can't wait to hear how young we sound in 40 years.
Yeah, I'll see you next year.
Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate you coming in here and talking about your life.
Thank you. It was much better this time.
Yeah. We'll see what tomorrow and the next year brings. For Allen Strickland Williams, we'll see you all next week and maybe next year on the Allen Strickland Williams Show. We'll see you next week. Bye.